This is Alice Pond Local Nature Reserve in Sonning in Berkshire. It's a site of about 2 acres and it's owned partly by Sonning Parish Council and partly by Reading Bluecoat School. And what we've done here is create a range of habitats, including wildflower meadows. We've also planted hedgerows and trees and shrubs in the corners of the field. And very importantly, we've created 2 ponds. These are lined ponds, lined with butyl and a protective layer on top, and you see one coming up in front of you here. These have to be lined because we're on top of a hill and they would be bone dry in summer if we didn't. Within those ponds we've then planted wetland vegetation, aquatic plants, etc. And this is now a fantastic reserve for the local community. And very importantly, these ponds support high populations of great crested newts. This species is a protected species in Britain and thrives in these pond habitats, but is very dependent on the rough grassland and trees and shrubs that you have in the ditches alongside the site, because the adults are only in the pond for the breeding season from about March to July, and the rest of the time they need this rough grassland and the ditches for refuges and for feeding. So these sites are now very important breeding ponds. And we now have a population of something like 1,000 of these creatures in the parish. Originally, when we started, there were no known records, but when we constructed the first pond, we discovered that they'd moved in, and we then found out that there was a pond in a garden to the left of the hedge and tree line that you see in this shot here. There's a private garden, large private garden with a pond in which great crested newts, it appeared, had been breeding in. They have now spread into these other ponds, and now we have this very extensive population in at least 8 ponds throughout the village. And the important thing here is the connectivity that these hedgerows provide. So linking these rough grassland sites with other gardens and properties around the village is very important when it comes to the movement of these amphibians and other species from site to site within the village. Now, as you will have seen people in these meadows, in these shots, that this is actually a volunteer work party pulling ragwort from the meadow prior to the hay cutting that will be carried out later in the year. This shot here shows Alice Pond itself in the corner with a boggy area, quite an extensive boggy area just beyond the pond, which is deep in water in the winter but is relatively dry in the summer, but nevertheless supporting good wetland vegetation. And this is something the village really cherishes. It's a very popular site.
That's it. Well done.